I was reflecting on parenthood and on how children are raised these days in the modern days. And I see a huge discrepancy from the way things were to the way things are, and a huge discrepancy from how we perceive these differences. Times have changed. Life has become more faster. We have to do more. We have to work more. We have more responsibilities. There's more technology. And in the old days, life was easy, and life has become complicated now. So all these things are used as a justification or a understanding of why things have changed so much in how we raise our children. And I think some clarity on this is really needed right now. I believe, and this is quite a blanket statement, and you can disagree with me on this, but I believe a lot of parents are raising their children based on guilt. We are guilt-based parenting, which is really not useful. We don't want to be harsh with our children. We want to be extremely nice to them, give them whatever they want, speak to them kindly, raise them really well. That's apparently what it means to raise them really well. To make them into these big teddy bears, in fact, is the outcome. If you've been cuddled and cradled and been given everything you ever wanted and never said no to, and then your parents die, or that you grow up and enter the workforce and your boss says to you, you didn't do that right. He says, well, I can't handle that, the child says. My parents never spoke to me like that. You have no right to speak to me like that. And then they become depressed because people have taken advantage of them and treated them in a nasty way. So you have on the other extreme, parents who just ignore their children. They're a big burden. Get them an iPhone, get out of their way, let them do whatever they want, and in fact resent their children, which is the other extreme. But those parents that really want to love their children and make sure that these children grow up to be people that can stand on their own 2 feet, I believe a different approach is required. An approach where you don't cuddle them, you don't give them everything that they want, and you're not extremely polite to them. Now, does that mean that we're being nasty? No. This is how it's interpreted wrongly. If you're being straightforward, straight up, and saying, no, son, no, daughter, you can't have that right now, but you will at this appropriate time. Or know that you can't do that, and know that that's inappropriate for you to do. That is restricting them so that they understand that life is not just about, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, we'll do as you want. Because that's the big step forward when they go into the real world where there's still some old people who haven't fully grasped the concept of political correctness. And there's a lot of them out there, but that's perfectly fine. I was reflecting as I drove through the wilderness here, looking at people walking, and there was a group of 15 youth walking in their teenage years, between the ages of 15 and 18. I looked at their faces and they were rugged. They were tough. And they were by themselves in a whole group of guys, not getting up to mischief, but just walking, being out in nature on a Sunday morning. They can't afford the tablets. They can't afford a cell phone with all the fancy gadgets. They've got a cell phone to pick up and make a call. But data is so expensive, and the salary they've got can't justify that ability to, spend hours on YouTube. So they are deprived. But are they? And that's something we have to think about. Now, how do we balance our lives so that we're not over-spoiling them, but at the same time that we're not being nasty to them? And it was one of the great authors, famous book authors, I think it was Hemingway, but I stand to be corrected, who said, do not love your children too much. Because when we love them too much, we care for them too much, we don't allow them room to express and to grow. We make them copies of who we are. And who we are is very much a guilt-based society of parents. And the children also have that, and it's passed down. So now we don't want to be nasty to them because we feel guilty because we're not there all the time. And You know, the poor things, they just don't have what we had, and all this kind of stuff that we make up, which we don't need to. We don't have to make excuses for our children. It is the age that we live in. Things are difficult. Things are challenging. They've got a lot of distractions. You know, suicides are up based on whatever else we want to talk about, statistics. So we need to be extra careful with them. But does that mean you have to treat them with kid gloves and treat them like they're some kind of abnormal people? Because that's when life throws you with a curveball, as it will. I guarantee you that. And the children, they can't cope. Because it's always been the sheltered, safe environment where everything was taken care of. Mom was there, dad was there. All that kind of stuff was taken care of. You may not be able to give them the latest gadgets, but mom and dad, because they feel so guilty for some reason, which I don't fully understand, that they are there for their children all the time. Sorry, honey. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. So you're teaching the children this behavior that if you don't get what you want, then you're owed an apology. So I had a lady who said, oh, you offended my whole nation because you said this thing. And I said, well, I had no intention of offending your whole people. But if it was so offensive, then please leave. And she was outrageous. She was outraged. That's so rude. That's unacceptable. I'm a patriot. I said, I'm a patriot too. I didn't mean to offend, but if you were offended, then please leave. She was furious. No one told her no. Mommy and daddy said, you should fight for what you believe in, son or daughter, and you will always be treated kindly. But life is not like that. And part of that antidepressant usage and anxiety and all the rest of it is that they're encountering a different reality out there. You've got Facebook and Instagram saying, you know, if you're pretty and you're charming, then you'll get everything you want because followers somehow represent your ability to be rugged and resilient in life, which is absolute nonsense. And then they find this real world away from the parents. And they're in shock now. It's just like everybody's saying no to me. I can't handle this. I can't handle this rejection. But if the parents had to inculcate in this, no, you can't have that. No, sit in your room. Shut up. Do not talk when I'm talking. And we're not talking about making them into copies of you and making them all yes ma'am, yes sir kind of people. That's not what I'm saying at all. In fact, I think we should allow them to express themselves and say things that are politically incorrect. I let my daughters do that. And my wife says, you can't speak to your dad like that. And I'm saying, but it's perfectly fine. Let them speak. Let them express themselves. And it's amazing how their personalities become so robust. But when I say to her, you can't do that. And if you're going to be a nag, then you're going to your room. And so she knows that. And I don't have perfect children, by the way. I'm not saying I'm the model citizen of this. It's just my reflection that we have to give them a fighting chance. So when you're not there, that they have a way to cope in life. A lot of fathers, and I've got daughters so I know this, a lot of fathers give their daughters everything, spoil them rotten, which is our relationship. My daughters are my everything. But here's the thing. They end up thinking that all men are like daddy. Polite, yes, pick up your bag, take off your shoes, do whatever you want, worship the ground you walk on, which is great if that's what you want out of your child. But then they enter these relationships and within a month, they have husbands, boyfriends, treat them not the same way. And they're like, you know what? I don't want to be putting up with this torture and this awful behavior. And when I look into that from the clients that I get, it's really not that bad. But nobody's going to be like daddy because daddy said yes to everything. And daddy was sweet and polite and always available at 3 a.m. to come and comfort you and read you a bedtime story. But partners in life are not like that. So by you being this person to them, this great hero, you're making it difficult for them to find. My father wasn't the nicest guy. Neither was my wife's. But then she found me and she said, you know what? You're not that bad. You know, my father wasn't the most polite guy and you're pretty good. And I'm not really, because I can be quite, facetious at times. And that's what I am. I'm not perfect in any way. But because she wasn't given everything, she had a tough upbringing in many sorts of ways, had to work, and dad was a little irresponsible and a little sort of incompetent in some ways. That was a great thing. Wasn't a terrible thing. We all want to be these perfect parents. And the kids go out there and they're like, well, you're not like mommy or daddy. And when I tell you nonsense that you don't tolerate and you tell me nonsense back, I can't accept that. Mommy and daddy never taught me like that. We were always taught to be politically correct. If you're polite, then I'm polite. But the world doesn't work like that. And also for grinding into the workforce and grinding into life and grinding into the football team and fighting your way through life. That resilience is not there because they've been given everything. Whereas these kids walking around, they were walking 15 kilometers. It took me 20 minutes to drive that. It would have taken 3 hours. And the toughness on their faces. These people would walk no problem, perfect condition, absolutely rugged physical specimens because of that ruggedness, you know. In one of Hemingway's books, Death in the Afternoon, he talks about this bull called the Miura, and I never forgot it. He says that the Miura bull is one of the most rugged bulls out there because it has to travel 20 kilometers to get to the watering hole, and it does that all the time. And that makes it so tough and resilient. So when the bullfighters encounter Miura, they are petrified because they know they're finally going to meet their match because this animal has been bred with toughness and ruggedness. Now, I'm not saying, because a lot of people like to do that assumption thing. So you're saying we should raise our children like animals? Yes and no. All right? Yes and no. Make them tough. So here's a wonderful story of the Mayans and of the ancient Inca people. When a child reached the age of puberty, male or female, the father and mother would say, all right, child, it's time for you to go up the mountain and be alone with the wolves in the night. So it's wild out there, really dangerous, all right? It's rugged out there. You can get eaten up by a wolf or a lion or whatever that may be out there. But they have to do it. And so when the child turns to puberty, the father says, pack your bags. Tonight you're going to sleep on the mountain and you can only leave when the sun comes up. So the mom diligently packs some food, and in reverse roles, it may be the dad cooking, or in other roles, they might have went to KFC because we don't want to be politically incorrect again, right? Someone packs the lunch, and then the dad takes the child up the mountain, all the way to the top of the mountain with their little meal, but that's all they've got, nothing else, and leaves them up there. That child goes through hell, hears sounds, jumps at every sound there is. It's horrific, and they may have encountered some creatures as well, but the child must do this. And I can see the great wisdom in that, because that experience stays forever. The child conquers their fears, goes through hell. The mind keeps on chattering over and over again. This could happen, this could happen. And the child is overwhelmed, screams, cries, whatever it does, maybe not screams, but feels totally anxious, out of control, because they're facing possibly their own mortality here. So then finally, they don't sleep a wink at night. And finally, when they see the first light, a smile comes on their face, because they did it. They weren't allowed to come down, and they wait for the sun to rise, just as the parents ordered them. And as they're coming down the mountain, they find their dad, who slept the entire night in the bushes hidden away from the child, making sure that nothing seriously happens to them, protecting them. And that's the story of building ruggedness and making people, and especially children, become these tough creatures that can be out there and do things and be able to stand on their own 2 feet when you're not there. So my question is, are you trying to tell your children how great you are as a parent? Or are you trying to make them into these rugged people that when you're not there, that they've got a strong chance of succeeding in life, which is getting tougher? Think about that. Are we trying to raise children that will become polite and very courteous and very kind and very soft and sweet as you are? Or do we want to show them another side to what life is? That toughness, the survival, the digging in there, that you can do this, you've got to do this, because I'm not there, you're on your own. And training them in that particular way to finally go out there and become incredible so that when you're not there, or when you're leaving this world, you say, you know what, I'm confident that they can make it on their own. And then your job is done as far as the parenting is concerned, in my view. In my view. Thank you for listening.